Hey guys, it's Miss Gephardt, and we're going to go through and do some notes and discussion on water regulations. Essential question, it's only really one essential question, but when you get finished with this, you need to make sure you understand what regulations have been put in place by the government to protect the drinking water. All right, so the first thing we want to talk about before we get into the actual water regulations is something called the EPA, which stands for the Environmental Protection Agency. That's something you want to make sure you kind of know. And this government organization was created in order to help protect the environment as well as all of human health. Well, not all of human health, but I mean human health in relation to the environment. All right, so what the EPA is going to do is it's going to regulate how we dispose of things. If you were to look at the back of certain chemicals, paints, oils, things like that, they give you proper instructions on how to dispose of those. And these are things that are put in place by something like the EPA. They're in charge of making sure that the environment is protected, as well as regulating human health concerns, such as waste management. Okay, so when you go home and you go to the bathroom, your waste is taken care of properly. Our health would be tremendously affected if we dumped raw sewage directly into aquifers or lakes or rivers or streams or whatever, because that's how you get disease. You can get diseases through the spread of human fecal matter. Okay, so the EPA is what's there to protect us and the environment in terms of things like chemical disposal and waste disposal. All right, so the Clean Water Act was established in 1972, and the purpose of the Clean Water Act was to protect all of the water in the U.S. And so basically, the objective of the act was to restore and maintain the chemical, physical, and biological integrity of the nation's waters. So what it was doing was people were seeing that the waters were in really bad trouble. Really bad trouble, that sounds terrible. It was in trouble. People continued to pollute into the rivers and lakes and streams. Plants like factories and stuff dumped raw sewage, hadn't been purified right into the water. And so what they started to see was like there's consequences to that. So the Clean Water Act was put in place in order to try to maintain and restore what the water used to be. You know, we think back to 500 years ago, water, this purified, clean water, and now with industrialization and human, explosion of people, tons of people and cars and factories and everything, we have sort of done a number on the environment in a very quick amount of time. So this was established to sort of help protect, not just water in North Carolina, but this was the Clean Water Act was the entire United States. All right. The Safe Drinking Act was established in 1974, and what this did was it started to set some minimum standards so this act was set to sort of set these standards for drinking water. So what it means is that there is an acceptable level of things in your drinking water. It could be copper, it's not mercury, but there's certain levels of metals, chemicals, things like that in your drinking water. And they set these standards, an appropriate level of them. So that means when you turn on the tap, if we were to take a vial of your water and test it, there may be levels of metals in there and chemicals, certain levels of them. Once it surpasses a certain level, that's when it's going to be deemed as not drinkable. Okay, and that would be a big crisis for all of us. But the point of this act was to make sure that we regulated and made sure that people were being conscious of what was in the water and knowing that, okay, this much is okay, it's not going to hurt people. This much is really bad. We need to make sure we do something to keep those levels down. Okay. And finally, we have the Clean Water Act amendment. So this was an amendment of the Clean Water Act. It was amended in 1985. And the goal of this was that all waters in the U.S. should be fishable and swimmable. And this was like by 1985. So it started up in 1983, and then they wanted it by 1985. That there should be no reason why you couldn't swim or fish in any body of water because it was clean. Okay. And the goal would be to eliminate all the discharge, all the pollution that was being directly dumped into the water. Okay, these acts and amendments are big acts and amendments that sort of started, were kind of big foundations of keeping the water fresh and clean. Okay, and of course, since then we've had things that have been tweaked here and there. Going for certain percentages of water cleaned or certain percentages of chemicals that are being, dropped in amount. But understand from all of this that the government has seen the water's not looking so good and want to do something about it. If you have any questions, please make sure you see your teacher. And if you have any questions through this, go back through and sort of look at this. You don't have to know in depth about each of these. Pretty much what we talked about is all you really need to know, but just be familiar with each of these acts.